friends, welcome to another episode of the Rifle Chart channel. Today we're going to be taking the Remington 700 American Wilderness Rifle out for a spin. As you see here, the American Wilderness Rifle was manufactured between 2017 to around 2019, maybe 2020, which is when Remington went into bankruptcy protection, and essentially all of their production kind of ground down to a halt until that whole kind of legal process evolved. They lost the Marlin, 1895, and the Marlin, pretty much the Marlin lever guns. They went to Ruger as the shakeout of that whole process. The Remington ammunition line went to a different purchaser, and so on. So bits and other parts of the company had to get sold off in order to help to pay for a bunch of the debts that they had incurred. It was no longer sustainable. They had to go through this legal process, and as a result, the American Wilderness Rifle ceased production. So it was only made for a few years. I'm going to tell you a little bit why I think it's kind of cool. The American Wilderness Rifle. I don't know why I'm having problems saying that, but we'll just talk a little about some of the specs that we see here. As you see, without scope, pads, rings, run 8 pounds. So it's not a lightweight rifle. You add your sling and your scope and your rings and your pads and your sling swivels. You're going to be in the 10-pound kind of range for weight. So there's some advantages to having a rifle that's got a little bit of heft to it, especially if you're going to be kind of in the recoil department. I mean, this thing was sold in 270 Winchester, 30-06 Springfield, 300 Winchester Magnum, 7mm Remington Magnum, 300 Remington Ultra Magnum, and 338 Remington Ultra Magnum. And those are artillery pieces. I mean, tremendous recoil. And so you need to have a rifle that's got a little bit of heft to it. And so for me, shooting a rifle that's around the 10-pound range is not such a big deal. But for somebody who wants to be kind of a mountaineering, alpine, goat hunting rifle, this might not be the rifle for you. I don't know. It's entirely your comfort zone. There are some benefits to having a rifle that's got a couple extra pounds. That's all I'm saying when it comes to managing recoil. The rifle is pillar bedded. There's 2 aluminum pillars right around the front and the rear action screws. It is not glass bedded though. I think there may be some advantages to actually glass bedding this rifle, especially maybe even just skim bedding in the recoil lug area in order to kind of bring your groups down just a little bit. I'll show you some, we're going to do a zeroing exercise. Then we're going to start to shoot 3 different factory ammunition types, all of which is 180 grains. 180 grain 30-06 Springfield ammunition, which is still, even though it's considered to be budget ammunition, I'm getting devoured by blackflies today, holy. Even though the ammunition is basically considered to be budget ammunition, that ammunition is still $50 to $60 per box now today. So going out and just trying a couple of different ammunition types or brands just to see if there's one specifically that your rifle likes more it's a good idea. But I mean, if just trying 3 different boxes could cost you between $150 to $200 after taxes, which is horrendously expensive. And it's really it's unfair. It's price gouging. I know inflation, I know all this different stuff, carbon taxes, the price of fuel just to get it to market, and all the different stuff. All these extra costs are burdening you, the hunter or the shooter. I understand that. So it's not easy to go out and do stuff like this. So hopefully maybe this video will help some of you that are kind of struggling along right now. I'm no different really, but maybe this video will help some of you folks out there. So the American Wilderness Rifle is also, it's capped at 4 rounds. The internal box magazine can only hold 4 rounds, which has always been a bit of a grievance with me and the Remington 700. Why not make a magazine that can hold 5? I mean, they were able to do it with Model 98 Mausers, back in the day. Why can't Remington do it? But so it's got a 4-round internal box magazine. It's got a 24-inch barrel. The belted magnums and the ultra magnums come with a 26-inch barrel. So this one has 24-inch barrel. It's got 5R rifling, which means there's 5 grooves, 5 lands, and it's not a 90-degree. I mean, if you were to look at the actual rifling in this rifle, it's not a 90-degree turn. So the rifling inside your barrel, so I mean it's kind of more of a, you know, a gentler, instead of like a 90-degree, it's more of kind of a gentler transition to the rifling from the groove. They call it 5R rifling. It's supposed to help to reduce fouling and all the different kind of stuff. In my experience, it hasn't really helped with fouling, but possibly has increased your velocity, your muzzle velocity as a result. My only experience playing with this kind of stuff is got to do with the Enfield Enforcer and the cordial rifling that they use, and that's very similar to the 5R idea. And in my own tests, I was able to squeeze a little bit more velocity out of the rifle as a result of the type of rifling that I think is in there, comparing it to another rifle with the same twist and the same barrel length and so on, running the same ammunition. The Enfield Enforcer was shooting the same ammunition faster because, in my opinion, it was the rifling type that's inside the barrel. So that's interesting. You know, there may be a comparison to be made here with the Remington 700 American Wilderness rifle with the 5R rifling. The barrel is free floated, 100%. You can get a piece of paper from stem to stern, no contact whatsoever. It's not even kind of leaning to one side inside the barrel contour. It's evenly spaced all the way along. Like, I pay attention to stuff like that when it's kind of, you know, so there may be a bedding problem if it's kind of canted over to one side. So that's something to pay attention to. I haven't seen any of those kinds of problems with the Remington AWR. And, you know, in many ways, this is your Remington XCR2, but with the added advantage that the rifle is 100% stainless. The barrel is 416 stainless steel, stainless action, except it's all been Cerakoted, kind of a flat black. And I mean, if you're hunting, you don't want shine. You want your rifle to kind of blend in as best as possible. You don't want a great big flash of light to draw the attention of an animal. They'll see you, chances are, before you see them. And those moments of, I mean, shine, shimmer, all those kinds of things, it's just not a great idea for a hunting rifle. So I agree. Remington it was a good idea for them to do that and Cerakote it. And I found that there's absolutely no problems with working the action. It doesn't bind down. It's the Cerakoting doesn't seem to have impacted that at all, which is very, very nice. Just your standard drop floor plate, you know, for removing your ammunition. No different there with your conventional Remingtons. It's going to be great for not taking any bumps or bruises out in the bush, and if it does, it's going to have to be quite an impact before it's going to be able to scratch or mar the surfaces on this rifle, unlike a wood stock, for example. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this test. Maybe some of you are too, so let's get to it. Okay, we're going to start with Winchester Super X factory ammunition. It's older stuff though, mind you. When I buy ammunition, I'll buy 4 boxes at a time of the same lot just to keep me going for a little while. Because I'll use it in many rifles, not just one. And it gets used up relatively quick. So this is relatively old Winchester Super X 180 grain Spitzer point ammunition. You can see the box in the front there. And it's starting to rain. Put on some rain gear. Brought the pack out. I wasn't happy with the shooting position I had before. So let's try this again, and got another target up. I was shooting before. I wasn't happy with the results because my shooting position was not stable. This is kind of a rickety table. It is not stable. But we're just going to do with the best we can with what we have, which is kind of what you get with the Rifle Chair YouTube channel. Or the Rifle Chair, you know, Rumble channel, pretty much any channel. Okay. Sideways maybe. Oh yeah, that's better. Okay, we'll start with the left target and we'll work right. It is now raining quite consistently. Okay, here we go. Target is getting wet. It's about 1.25 inches apart, those two. Not particularly impressive. All right, let's try Federal Power Shocks, 180 grain. And then after this, just as a test, I'm going to check the action screws again. See if they backed off. I don't expect them to, but you never know till you try. You know, try to remove as many potential, causes for error. All right, let's shoot this grouping. Center target. That landed very high. Very high indeed. What the hell's going on there? That landed right next to it, but it is super high. Right at the top of the page. Okay, do the process again, let that barrel cool. Okay, next is going to be the Winchester 180 grain Power Max bonded bullet, which is a hollow point for quick expansion. But it is a bonded bullet, so hopefully weight retention is better than kind of your standard budget factory ammunition. I will say is that not having an exposed tip Really helps to prevent deformations of the soft leaded tip in some ammunition types where you have a lot of lead exposed. So if you have several rounds in your chamber, in your magazine, you shoot a shot, the round has a tendency to punch forward and hit the front of the internal box magazine and deforming the lead. And if you eject that round, decide to save it for another rainy day, it's got a deformed tip. These don't really have that problem. They don't have that problem. I'm not quite sure what this ammunition costs today. Everything has gone up so much. One thing I don't like about the Remington 700 is that I can only put 4 rounds in at a time. Maximum internal box magazine capacity is 4 rounds. Why not 5 rounds? Come on, guys. They could figure this out, World War I. I mean, okay. Stop bitching and start shooting. Target right. Do not see it. I'll fire another round. Hang on here. Is it even on the paper? Yep. It's almost in the bullseye. My 5th round. Oh, what's wrong? Does not want to chamber. That's pretty tight. Let's try the next round. That's easy. Why is this one not chambering? Yeah, a little bit high, I called that. Yeah, I guess we'll shoot it. I don't like it when it's difficult to get the bolt down. But, okay, we'll go take a look, and it's the best 4 out of 5. That's how we take our average. Okay, here we go. Starting from the first group, working our way to the right to the last group. You can see the Winchester Super X, 180 grain soft point, a little bit of vertical stringing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Taking the best 4 out of 5, because, you know, error, human error. You know, the table I was shooting off was wobbly, you know, or there's a whole bunch of error built into this, so I'm just taking the best 4 out of 5 to see if that maybe represents the rifle a little bit better. And even then, there's still error in the 4 out of 5. If I had the rifle kind of locked down in a proper shooting bench and maybe a lead sled or something like that, there's no doubt in my mind that these groups would be better. I shoot better in the prone supported because I can really bind down in that rifle, hold it in place, and shoot accurate small little groups. I can't do that here because I got some elevation differences. If I'm on the ground, I can't see the target. And so, because I got stuff in the way, stumps and bushes and stuff like that. I'm out in the bush, so this is austere shooting, and these are the results. So a little bit of vertical string, and it's probably related to the table that I'm shooting off of, and that's about not quite 2 inches, maybe 1 3/4 inches. The Federal Power Shock, huge giant surprise to me is that it jumped up like 6 inches for the grouping, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rounds right there. So there's 5 out of 5. That's the grouping. I can't really separate the best 4 out of 5 for this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I mean, that's interesting. You know, a 6-inch variation from the first lot of factory ammunition. And I guess what I'll say about that is that because this is a rifle that is free floated, it's not bedded, it is pillar bedded, with there's aluminum pillars around each action screw to kind of lock it in place. I think it still needs to be bedded. I think you should probably at least skim bed it at least. I didn't see any contact areas between the lug and the stock. I'm wondering if it just needs, maybe just the lug needs to be bedded on this rifle. That's something to think about. Also over here, but the group's not bad, all things considered, with kind of the conditions we were shooting in, which was episodic showers of rain and horrendous blackflies. I've been working around on the property here with an excavator, and I've just been working in the bush, and I'm just churning out the blackflies today. And I've been losing blood shooting these groups. And the very last group here, the Winchester Power Max Bonded, hollow point. Not a bad grouping, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's our basically a 1 1/4 inch group. You know, a lot of the reports coming out from 2017, 2018, 2019 were not giving consistent sub-minute of angle results. They weren't. They're like 1 1/4 inches, 0.98 inches, 1.5 inches, those kinds of groups. All these other shooters that have been shooting the Remington American Wilderness Rifle. And so, you know, maybe there should be no surprise here. Maybe there are opportunities to actually tighten the rifle up just a little bit. Definitely some opportunities for me to get a more stable shooting position. But, you know, overall, considering the austere conditions that we're shooting in today, it's really not that bad. Question is, I mean, it's really the goof behind the trigger, isn't it? And so this is what I could squeeze out of it in the conditions they're shooting in today. Maybe you can do better. But I have to admit is that I wouldn't want to be shooting the 300 Remington Ultra Mag or the 338 Remington Ultra Mag, even just after, you know, basically 20 rounds of ammunition. I got a small headache. It's not that bad, but it's 180 grain 30-06. They can be relatively unpleasant to shoot. I will say though is that thank God this is not one of those ultra featherweight rifles. This is not a lightweight rifle. This is a fairly heavy rifle. It's about 10 pounds, including the scope rings and scope mounts. So, I mean, in many ways, that's kind of like a World War II battle rifle. 10, 11 pounds, right around there, unscoped. Well, that's kind of what this thing weighs. If it was a lightweight rifle and I was just pounding the ammunition out of it like I did today, although I did let it have cooling periods in between each of these 5-round clusters, you know, it would have been quite unpleasant to shoot, in my opinion. At least 180 grain ammunition, 150 or maybe 165. Maybe it would be a little bit better, but probably not substantially better. I've shot all of those different ammunition types out of several different rifles. One of which was the Brno ZKK 600. The Brno has a totally different bedding system. It clumped every single one of those rounds across several different brands, including hand loads, into basically 1 1/4 inch clusters in the same place, minor variations, unlike the Remington 700. I think one of the reasons for that is because it is bedded in many different locations. It is not free floated. It is, it makes contact obviously here at the rear action screw, the front action screw. There's a screw in mid-stock, and it makes full contact at the barrel ferrule. So 1, 2, 3, 4 points of contact. And it doesn't have any of those wide swings like we saw with the Federal Power Shocks. Didn't do that. You know, you're not getting fantastic groups, but it shoots all of those even bullet weights. Pretty much the same. Not so with the American Wilderness Rifle. However, I think that what you'll find though is if you get a load that really works well in this rifle, maybe it's a hand load that you've tailored for the rifle, you stick with that, you're good to go. But if you're somebody who buys different brands of ammunition to go hunting with that year, then maybe something like this isn't something that you should pursue. What I will say about the American Wilderness Rifle though is that it really does, I mean, the action is very smooth. It's Tikka T3 like almost in the way the bolt moves. What I can also say is that what people used to do, or probably still do actually, is that they would go get themselves a Remington SPS. They'd strip off the stock, put a McMillan on or something like that. They would take the barrel off, put an International barrel, IBI barrel on, or you know what I mean, or a Krieger barrel or something else, just to get rid of the Remington barrel that was on there. There's probably nothing terribly wrong with the original Remington barrel for your average shooter, but you also have kind of a different layer or genre of shooters out there who just want their rifle to have the best parts and components. You'd see X-Mark Pro triggers on the market all over the place, you know, never even used, just taken out, so old, and so because they bought a Timney or a Dayton Tracer or other types of triggers and installed them, and you know, lots of factory like Remington recoil lugs, and they buy big fatter, you know, recoil lug for their rifles and install those. So basically they're buying their SPS just for the action, the bolt and the action. Everything else just gets sold on the used market because they don't want that stuff. And I think that's one of the reasons why kind of Remington went the way they did. The reason why I was interested in this rifle is because Remington basically went and did all that work for you with the Grabo stock. You know, we got the 5R barrel on here. Maybe there's something to that, you know, just to kind of bring you back to the table a little bit, make this a little bit more appetizing. Sure, you're paying a little bit more than your SPS rifle for the American Wilderness Rifle, but you're not paying that much more. And you got all these other little parts and pieces and components on there that you probably would have swapped out and acquired at great expense to yourself and rebuilt the rifle the way you would like to have it rebuilt. And I think that Remington had a really good idea. I mean, I really do. I mean, really honestly, in many ways, I think what they were trying to do with this rifle is compete with the Winchester Model 70 Extreme Weather. And neither of these rifles are lightweight. And as previously discussed, that's probably a good thing in many ways. You know, it may be a little bit more difficult to field if you're a stalking hunter. If you like you're on your feet. A lot of people are road hunters. They won't have to worry about that. Although I think if you're a road hunter, having a detachable box magazine is probably better. But because you need to be able to get out of your truck, load the magazine, and then shoot the moose or the deer or whatever it is that you're shooting. But anyway, the American Wilderness Rifle, it's too bad they don't make them anymore. They stopped making them in 2019 or 2020 when Remington went into bankruptcy protection. They stopped making them. They didn't bring it back to the table. So You know, they're just kind of running the new SPS line and a couple of other different variants. Love the stock. Love the rifle. I know I can do better than this. I know the rifle can do better than this. But this is what I can squeeze out of it today. I don't know if you guys are into these kind of like, you know, austere, remote wilderness kinds of locations. These videos, I've had this rifle for 2 years. It's taken me this long to make this video for you. There's many various reasons for that. Hasn't been easy the last couple of years. And so, I mean, also if you know, the shooting videos are things that I do on this channel that you enjoy, then maybe consider being a partner through the Patreon channel and subscribing and donating to the channel. This actually was made as a result of Patreon money. This shooting stand, I've got some steel behind here, which was also donated by patrons. So I'd like to say thank you to all the people that are helping me out with the channel on Patreon. Thank you very much. It is much appreciated, and all of that money gets cycled back into the channel through things like, you know, it helped to acquire this American Wilderness rifle, which I actually traded for, but I mean, it was still kind of in the mix, shall we say. That's it, folks. Hope you enjoyed the video. Cheers, and as always, Maple Leaf Up.